good, everybody? It's the real AG here, back at you again on the Lockdown Defense Sports Network. And as my boy Coach Defense prefaced a little earlier today in the video that we dropped, the Hick Squad is back, and we are kicking this summer off with our annual series that we have dubbed the Preseason Preview. That's right, we are about to get in each and every person's team's business, looking at the moves that they made in the offseason and the prospects or hopes that are out there for 2025. Now, I'm going to be batting leadoff here in our first kickoff of this series, looking at the NFC East, and we are going to preview them G-men up in New York. That's right, looking at the New York Giants. What is their future, and can they make a thrilling comeback in 2025? Now, as everyone knows, they did not have the best of seasons last year. Started with losing Saquon to Philly, went 3-14, and we're picking extremely high in the draft. So really can't get much worse than how it was. But with that being said, I think the Giants made a lot of moves in the right direction, made a lot of exciting acquisitions and trades into the draft. So a lot of exciting pieces that there's room to grow for 2025. So, let's just get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. As I kind of mentioned, I love some of the moves that the Giants made in this offseason. Looking right here, here's your list of their notable free agent signings or re-signings. I'm not going to read the whole list off to you. You can see them all there, though. But I'd say the biggest ones are the ones that stick out the most. The signing of Paulson Adebo from New Orleans for 3 years, $54 million. I will say this. The Giants definitely understood that they had some secondary issues and certainly addressed that, signing two of the bigger ticketed items, in the secondary in this 2025, free agent class, starting with Paulson Adebo. He is a young, promising corner out of New Orleans, or that's where they signed him from. Only played 7 games last season, but, the dude is a straight-up pick machine. I think I had mentioned him before in a prior video. 3 interceptions in 2024 after only playing 7 games and, 10 total in his career. So pick machine that you can fit at corner. Fits in a perfect need that the New York Giants needed. The next big ticket signing of this free agent class to me has got to be safety Javon Holland. I know our boy Mike Dove was a little salty. He went NFC East, but not to his squad. But again, the most touted safety in this free agent class, signed him to 3 years, $45.3 million. But looking at Holland, he is a true rangy deep safety, can play 2 high, single high, can cover the back end and, jump into the midfield and into those in-breaking routes. So he's definitely the safety that you would want in your defense. And again, I think a slam dunk free agent signing for the Giants. I would say the signing of Jameis and Russ, honestly, probably more Russ, but just look at what they did. Coupled with what they did in the draft, you're getting veteran QB presence that they needed. Looking at Russ, you don't have to, or Jameis, either one. Still looking at it, they signed them both for the price of a wide receiver 3. Pretty damn good deal, if you ask me. But whoever it ends up being, let's just, for transparency here, say it's probably going to be Russ. You got a veteran QB. You got a guy who's, been a high caliber quarterback in the NFL. You don't have to rush your rookie out there. And New York Giant fans don't have to go through another season of watching Tommy Cutlets try to sling the rock. Nothing against the dude. Great story, but he can stay on the sideline making that gabagool now. But those have to be, the 3 to 4 biggest free agent signings. And then, huge to re-sign Darius Slayton. I think that's a very undervalued move. Dude has been a productive monster, especially across from neighbors, and pretty team-friendly deal, and he's in the prime of his career. And then, re-signed all of their offensive linemen that, played meaningful snaps for them in 2024. So, be it as it may, it's always good, especially in the O-line room, to have some consistency and to keep that group together. Should only help develop things further in this year. Moving on to the draft, in my opinion, the New York Giants had a pretty slam dunk 2025 draft. I mean, I think they were consistently ranked, again, subjective gradings, but consistently ranked pretty high up. I think I would overall give them, an A minus to an A in the moves they made and the players they brought in this draft. First and foremost, Abdul Carter, total slam dunk pick. May have been a surprise for some just given the other players that the Giants have on their defense. But I mean, if you look at mixing him in with Brian Burns and Thibodeau, like that is just a lethal, 1-2-3 punch of edge rushers that could certainly create some pressure, against opposing offenses. Obviously, everyone saw them trade back into the first round to get their potential QB of the future in Jackson Dart. They traded with the Houston Texans to get their 25th overall pick, traded their second rounder, which is the 34th pick, their third rounder, which is the 99th pick, and a 2026 third rounder. So all in all, I mean, did not give up a whole lot to get, quote, probably, quote, their guy in Jackson Dart, but, answer that big question of the offseason of moving on from Daniel Jones, who's going to be the bright light in the future? Well, it's our boy Jay Dart, who they got, getting back into the first round. Then you look at the rest of the draft they did. Third round pick, they got interior D lineman Darius Alexander. A lot of people big on him. Fourth round pick took, the unsung hero Cam Scatterbro out of Arizona State. Got Marcus Imbo out of Purdue, Thomas Fidone, and Corey Black in the seventh round. But looking at Alexander, Scatterbro, that's right. I'm gonna make that stick. And Imbo. I mean, those are all very high value picks that they got through rounds 3 through 5. And Thomas Fidone, I mean, had some injury concerns, but I think is a sleeper tight end in this draft class that really brings huge playmaking upside if he can return to what he was in Nebraska pre-injury. But, for a team that's been desperately trying to find that complimentary tight end, traded for Darren Waller, we all saw how that worked out. Theo Johnson showed some praise, but, did get hurt last year. Fidone might be the unsung hero of this draft with what he could potentially bring. So, love that late seventh round sleeper pick for them. Again, really no significant trades, other than what they did in the draft, trading up. They were trying to trade. They were rumored for a lot of trade activity. Saw a lot of reports of them in on trying to get Geno, trying to get Stafford, and I think even trying to trade up to the number 1 pick to get Cam Ward. So as evident by them trading in to take Jackson Dart, the Giants, at least the front office and Daboll, knew that they needed a QB and were trying to make that happen, whatever means necessary. But again, no significant trades other than the trade up in the first round. Everyone knows that Daboll and Joe Schoen are back in action or got to run it back, as some may say. But they did make some decent coaching staff changes, but the big player, big ticket items in that front office and staff are still intact. It'll be interesting to see how that goes for 2025. I would like to think that by them giving assurances that they're coming back and given the green light to trade for a QB in the first round, that means the owner and the Giants in general are going to be patient with these guys and let them get to the vision they have. But time will tell with how this season goes. But yeah, no significant trades are big coaching changes. Looking at their 2025 schedule, all I got to say to my Giant fans out there, oof. I mean, like they went 3-14, like I said, 2024, dead last in the NFC East, did not win an NFC East game. And then on top of that, get the 2025 season with the toughest, that's right, I said toughest strength of schedule. So, looking at their schedule, I mean, they have, like I said, toughest strength of schedule. 10 of these games are against 2024 playoff teams. 6 of those 10 games are within the first 8 weeks here. So they just have an absolute gauntlet pretty much to about maybe, let's say, the 40. I mean, well, Saints in week 5, that's a nice gimme gift, but the rest of them are certainly juggernaut matchups. So interesting to see how 2025 will pay off for the Giants, and if these moves, really help change things drastically compared to what they did in 2024. But just looking at everything as a whole, ladies and gentlemen, I think, my overall offseason grade for the New York Giants has to be, in my opinion, a B plus. Like I said, I love what they did in the draft. I'd give them an A minus to an A in what they did in the draft. Made some nice splashy free agent additions, but again, we'll see how much patience they have with Daboll and Schoen. We'll see, how much patience they have with Russ or Jameis and before throwing Dart out to the Wolves. But look at what they did. They answered a lot, like I said, answered a lot of questions that they had going into the offseason. They got their QB or potential QB of the future. Who's going to be coaching them through the future to be determined. But added an absolute mauler off the edge in Abdul Carter. Like I said, made several key free agency additions in their secondary and bringing in, veteran QB presence. And, with that, like I said, got the veteran QB so you don't have to rush Jackson Dart out there too early or ruin him before things take off. Obviously I've mentioned the Daboll Schoen dilemma because some of the hot seat or how hot their seat gets as the season goes on, I think, expedites things with Dart, unfortunately. But like I said, you would hope that by letting them know that early they're coming back, letting them trade up again in the first round, they've been given some maybe backdoor assurances that, the owner understands this is gonna be a slow burn rebuild, but to be determined for 2025. Overall, call it a great offseason for the Giants. Like I said, answered a lot of questions that they had, at least on paper. Looking at their prediction, my overall prediction for 2025, you know, we'll see. tough strength of schedule. They did go 3-14 last year. Only beat Cleveland, Seattle, and Indy. Did not beat a single NFC East rival in 2024. I think the two things going for them are one, different team, different moves made, and have potentially a very stout defense to work with, and nobody's won the AFC or NFC East, back to back in 22 years. So it's always up for grabs as long as they don't win it the prior year. But just kind of quickly going through the schedule, I think against the Commanders week 1, that's a loss. I think they lose to the Cowboys in week 2. I know I'm covering the Giants, but I'm a Chiefs guy. Come on. I think they lose. I know they lose to the Chiefs in week 3. I think they lose to the Chargers in week 4. I think they see their first win of the season week 5 against the Saints because, come on, it's going to be a dumpster fire down in New Orleans. I don't think they bounce back off of that, or build off of that. I see them losing to the Eagles in week 6. I do think I mentioned they have all, 10 2024 playoff teams. I think of those playoff teams that they are playing, the Broncos potentially, provide the easiest path to a win. Just depending on what happens with that offense and if Nix can take that sophomore step forward. So I'm going to chalk them up to beat the Broncos in week 7. I think they lose to the Eagles in week 8. I think they lose to the Niners in week 9. I do think we see the G-Men beat the Bears in week 10. I think they lose to the Packers in week 11. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying here. I think they lose to the Lions in week 12. Week 13, though, hold on. Battle of the blue and red. I think we see the Giants squeak one out against the Patriots in Foxborough. Bye week in week 14. Week 15, I'm sorry, Giants fans, but I don't see you beating the Commanders. So that's an unfortunate sweep with Washington in the NFC East. I see them losing to the Vikings in week 16. I do see them beating the Raiders in week 17, and I see them beating the Cowboys in week 18. Game time on that to be determined because of the potential ramifications. But unfortunately, if things go as I predict, the Giants finish 2025 at 6-11. Like I said, I think that is a step in the right direction. That is the building blocks for another great offseason and then hit the ground running in 2026. We'll see how this season goes, how patient they are with Russ or the team before darts thrown out there. But I mean, look at the gauntlet here. I mean, realistically, if you want Dart to not be a head case for the rest of his career, he should not even be considered to be starting until week 10 against the Bears. And that's just, I mean, tough teams pretty much all the way up to week 10. Let's look out for the guy. But like I said, ladies and gentlemen, overall 6-11 prediction for the Giants in 2025, a slight improvement and a step in the right direction to continue building in the next offseason. So, that pretty much wraps up the leadoff hit here of our preseason preview for the NFC East, looking at the G-Men, the New York Giants. If you want to get at the gang or any of us on our socials, there's our info right there. You can get at me at The Real Givens on X, formerly known as Twitter, and the IG. Please be sure to subscribe to this video down below or subscribe to the channel. Like the video. If you're a Giants fan out there and you're catching this preview out, appreciate the viewership. Let me know if you agree or disagree with anything I had to say about your squad. Would love to hear from our Giant fan base out there. And as always, if you love this content or just want to catch more Lockdown Defense sports content, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. We are everywhere and anywhere your smartphone will take you. Across all social media platforms. And for our dinosaurs out there that just want to go on a rant-fueled, aggressive email, there it is right there. Hit us on Gmail. But in the meantime, in between time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the Real AG. That is our preseason preview of the NFC East, looking at the New York Giants. And I will see you when I see you. Make sure you are stepping it up and lock it down, baby.